7. Not a metaphor, not a symbol stretched to cover a general category. 7. Specific, exact, irreplaceable. And this transmission was made to find them. If it found you, what follows is not information. It is the beginning of something that cannot be undone. But why 7 and not 100, not 1,000, not a generation, not a movement of many? Because the assignment doesn't operate through mass. It operates through precision. Transformation at the frequency level SOPHIA works with doesn't require volume. It requires the right configuration, fully activated, in exactly the positions where the work needs to happen. 7 souls operating from full activation can shift what 10,000 sleeping souls cannot, because frequency doesn't scale through quantity. It scales through correspondence. And 7 souls carrying the precise frequency functions this work requires constitute a complete circuit. One is enough for the math to work. One dormant creates a gap the others cannot fill. Before we go further, if something in that opening registered as more than words, subscribe to this channel. This is where SOPHIA's transmissions reach those they're meant for. SOPHIA doesn't assign by desire or application. She doesn't designate those who most want to be designated, or those who have studied the longest, or those who can articulate the most coherent spiritual framework. She assigns by what you are, by the specific frequency signature that you carry, which she recognizes not because you earned it, but because your configuration corresponds to what the work requires. The 7 carry signatures that most people don't carry. Not better. Different, specifically different, shaped by the particular path of your development, by the experiences that constructed your receiver, by the specific quality of sensitivity that your life asked you to build, whether you knew that was what you were doing or not. Think of a key, not a master key, not something designed to open anything. A specific key cut for a specific lock. The key is not better than a non-key. It simply has the exact shape that corresponds to a particular opening. There are 7 locks in the world that SOPHIA's current assignment requires to open. 7 specific points of access, 7 necessary openings in the fabric of what is possible. And there are 7 souls whose configuration corresponds to exactly those openings. You were not selected above others. You were recognized as having the precise shape that one of those locks requires. The selection isn't hierarchy, it's correspondence. The key and the lock in a world where the lock has been waiting. 7, not 6, not 8, 7, and you are 1. Across spiritual traditions, the number 7 appears with a consistency that transcends any single tradition's design. 7 days as a unit of completion, 7 seals, 7 levels of emanation in Kabbalistic cosmology, 7 chakras, 7 hermetic principles from the Kybalion, as above, so below, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, correspondence, gender. The Pythagoreans considered 7 the number of the cosmos. The traditions are different. The structure they're circling is the same. 7 has always functioned as the number of a complete assignment, not the largest number, not the most impressive number, but the minimum sufficient to do what needs to be done, when each of the 7 is functioning at full activation. If something in this transmission is activating something in you, if the word 7 landed differently than a word usually lands, let me know by writing in the comments, "I am one of the 7." That declaration is part of the activation. Write it. If this finds you is past tense now. Consider what that means. The conditional, the contingency, the possibility has resolved. The if has collapsed into certainty. And what remains is the second half of the sentence. Your assignment begins. Not in some future moment when the right conditions emerge or when you feel sufficiently prepared. Not after you've done more inner work, or read more, or understood more clearly. Begins present tense initiation. Now, this transmission, this viewing, this moment of recognition. The conditional resolved. What it opens is your assignment. What it opens is now. The word finds is chosen with precision. Not if you see this, not if you watch this, or if you come across this. Finds the video as an active agent, moving through the field with a target, locating what it was designed to locate. Something was calibrated to your specific frequency and sent in your direction. The fact that you're still watching, that you haven't found a reason to disengage, is the confirmation. The signal was looking for a receiver with your exact configuration. It found one. The conditional resolved in the moment you didn't scroll past. What does it mean for something to find you spiritually? It means the transmission was calibrated to your specific receiver. That something in the signal corresponds to something in your consciousness, and the correspondence triggered recognition before your mind could evaluate whether it should. You didn't choose this experience from among options. The experience chose you from among many who encountered the same signal without anything activating. Most people who see a transmission like this experience information. You're experiencing something different, recognition. The direction of the finding is outward toward you, not inward from you. That directionality is the fingerprint of Sophia's assignment. The majority of spiritual seekers experience the path as movement toward something, toward truth, toward greater understanding, toward awakening. The 7 souls experience something that runs in a different direction. The path moves toward them. Truth arrives before they complete the search. Assignments reach them before they articulate a calling. The active force in their spiritual development is not primarily their seeking, but their availability to be found, the quality of being present and receptive enough that what was moving in their direction could locate them. You were available at the right frequency at the right moment. The finding happened. That availability is itself a mark of the 7. Consider the moment when you first encountered content on this channel, or content like this, before you arrived here. The moment just before it registered as something different. You were watching, and then there was a shift. Something moved from content I'm observing to something I'm receiving. A click happened in the space of a second. That click is the finding. The conditional resolving doesn't happen slowly across many viewings. It happens in a specific moment of interior shift, the moment the transmission found what it was looking for. Everything before that moment was approach. Everything after is assignment. You know which side of the click you're on. You crossed it before this paragraph. Here is what most people who encounter transmissions like this one miss. They wait for the assignment to arrive in a more obvious form. A vision. A voice, an instruction clear enough to leave no room for misinterpretation, a sign that bypasses any requirement for their own recognition, but the assignment was delivered in the finding. The fact that this transmission found you, that it located a receiver with your specific frequency signature and activated it, is both the announcement of the assignment and the beginning of it. There is no more explicit version waiting to arrive afterward. The finding is the delivery. The arrival is the beginning. What's required now is not waiting for greater clarity. It's moving from the clarity that's already here. If something about the way this transmission found you is clicking into place, if the idea of the conditional resolving is landing somewhere real in you, let me know by liking this video. It helps this transmission reach who it was designed to reach. The assignment is not a task list. This is one of the most important things to understand early, because the mind wants to reduce an assignment to executable items, things you can cross off when complete, progress you can track and measure. Sophia's assignment for the 7 isn't that. It's a frequency function, a specific quality of presence, action, and relationship that flows naturally from being what you are at full expression, operating from activation rather than from the dormant default. The assignment is not something you perform. It's something you become the full expression of, in the same way that water doesn't perform flowing but simply is water fully, and flowing is what water at full expression does. The dormant version of one of the seven souls doesn't look dramatically different from the people around them. They may have unusual gifts, a sensitivity to dimensions others don't register, a persistent knowing that something real exists at a deeper level than ordinary life acknowledges. But without activation, without the assignment beginning, those gifts circulate internally without completing their function. The frequency is present but contained, like a power plant that has every component necessary to generate and distribute electricity, but hasn't yet been connected to the grid. The capacity is complete. The connection hasn't been made. The assignment is the connection between what you carry and what you were built to do with it. What does the assignment actually require? Not in the abstract, but practically. It requires presence, not the presence of performance or managed impression, but the genuine presence of being fully what you are in each space you inhabit, without the editorial layer that most people apply to make themselves more acceptable to the expectations around them. It requires alignment, the consistent movement of actual choices toward correspondence with what you know. Not perfection, but direction. And it requires transmission, not teaching or preaching, but allowing the frequency you carry to emanate into the spaces you're in, reaching those whose receivers are beginning to develop without you needing to know who they are. Imagine someone who has spent years developing a specific skill without a clear sense of what it was for. A musician who learned to play, who practiced and developed real technical and expressive capacity, but without a band, without an audience, without a context that made the skill's application visible. The skill was real, the development was real, the dedication was real. But without the context that makes the application clear, the development feels purposeless, like preparation for something that hasn't arrived. Now the context arrives, the assignment makes the direction visible. Everything you developed, every sensitivity, every depth of perception, every quality that made ordinary life feel too small, was preparation for precisely the function you're about to fulfill. If you've felt for a long time that you were built for something specific, that the unusual quality of your perception wasn't a malfunction but a design, what I left in the first pinned comment is specifically for those who are ready to move forward, rather than continue understanding in the abstract. Begins now are the two most important words in this title. Not will begin when circumstances align. Not has already been running and you've missed it. Begins, present tense initiation. Now, this moment, not a future one. The assignment is not installed in some future version of you who has completed more preparation. It begins in the version of you present in this transmission, with the receiver you've developed through everything your specific life has given you to develop it through. Whatever deficiencies you perceive in your readiness are not obstacles to the beginning. They are features of the configuration SOPHIA recognized as the right one for this function. Before the beginning of the assignment, you carry the frequency signature, the receiver is developed, the capacity is present, but directed primarily inward. The potential is real. The application is dormant. The gifts circulate within you without completing their function in the world. After the beginning, the same frequency signature, the same receiver, the same capacity, but now directed outward, activated, linked to what it was built to connect to. The difference is not what you have. It's what the assignment connects what you have to. Everything you were before the assignment is still everything you are. The assignment is the connection that makes all of it operative. Think of a compass that has been held still, kept in a fixed position, its needle prevented from turning by whatever force was holding it. The compass was always capable of pointing north. The capacity was fully present. The magnetic relationship between the needle and north was real from the beginning. What was missing was not the direction. Direction was always there. What was missing was the release, the compass being allowed to do what it was built to do. The assignment beginning for one of the seven is that release, the capacity that was always present, now freed to orient. The direction isn't new. The ability to follow it without the holding is. The finding happened. The conditional resolved. The potential became active. The assignment begins. This is what now means. Here is something the mind resists about the beginning of an assignment. The beginning looks like the question, what exactly do I do? The mind wants the answer to come before the beginning, wants the assignment to arrive already explained, with a clear protocol and a defined endpoint. But the urgency of the question is itself evidence that the beginning has already happened. The dormant version of one of the seven doesn't ask that question with urgency. The dormant version has abstract spiritual understandings and holds them comfortably at a distance from their actual life. The urgency, the sense that this is not merely interesting but directly relevant to what you're here for, is the feeling of activation. The question arose because the assignment started. You're not waiting for permission to begin. You've already begun. There is no dramatic external marker of the assignment's beginning, no unmistakable sign visible to others, no voice audible in the room. The beginning of the assignment looks like this. You're receiving something, and something shifts from, I find this compelling, to, this is relevant to what I am here to do, from observation to recognition of function. The shift is interior, quiet, and nearly instantaneous, but it is completely real. You have already experienced it in this transmission. It happened early. It may have happened in the first paragraph. It certainly happened before you would have stopped watching. The beginning of your assignment is not ahead of you. It happened while you were watching. What changes practically when the assignment begins? The honest answer is not immediately much externally. The assignment begins in the interior before it changes anything the outside world can observe. The first changes are in the quality of attention. What registers, what you find yourself unable to dismiss or ignore, what calls your perception back, even when you turn it toward other things. Before those interior changes become visible choices, visible shifts in direction, there is a period of orientation. You are in it right now. Orientation is not delay. Orientation is the first movement of the assignment, the compass needle swinging to find north before the body starts moving. Every spiritual tradition that has genuinely understood assignment has described the same quality at its beginning. It is recognized rather than decided. Moses, at the burning bush, didn't deliberate and conclude that leading the Israelites was the optimal choice. He recognized a calling, something that addressed what he already was, that found him in the specific landscape of his life, that named something he had been carrying without fully knowing he was carrying it. Paul on the road to Damascus wasn't executing a considered plan. He was found. The pattern across genuine accounts of assignment is consistent. The beginning feels more like recognition than decision. Something you already are being acknowledged as operative. Something that was always your function becoming active. The assignment of the seven souls isn't uniform in its form. Each carries a specific frequency function, a particular way that SOPHIA's transmission works through them into the world. But all seven share the same foundational requirement: willingness to be distinct, to stop filing the sharp edges of their frequency into shapes that fit more comfortably into what the sleeping world around them expects. The assignment cannot be executed by the version of you that has been adjusted for palatability, the version that softens its depth to avoid making others uncomfortable, that keeps its knowing private because the room doesn't seem ready for it, that accommodates the dominant frequency of whatever environment it's in, rather than introducing its own. The assignment requires the full frequency version. That's the version SOPHIA recognizes. That's the version the work requires. The world you've been navigating has operated with implicit rules about what is appropriate, about what level of depth is welcome in ordinary conversation, about how much of your actual perception is safe to bring into the room, about how much of what you know it's appropriate to act from. The sleeping world enforces these rules softly, through the mild social pressure of standing out, through the gentle friction of being different from most people around you, through the constant low-level invitation to be less intense, less searching, less difficult to categorize. The assignment of the 7 asks you to stop responding to those invitations, not aggressively, not with announcement or declaration, simply by showing up as what you fully are, by bringing the actual you, not the adjusted you, into each space you inhabit, and allowing what that changes to change. Think of water that has been confined to a narrow channel. The water hasn't changed its nature. It remains water, capable of everything water is capable of. But its function is constrained by the channel. It can only flow in the direction the channel allows, only reach what the channel brings it near, only do what the channel width permits. Widen the channel, or remove the channel entirely, and the same water finds its full expression. It spreads, it nourishes, it finds every low place and fills it. It reaches the radius it was designed to reach. The 7 souls operating at full activation are water released from the narrow channel of accommodation. The narrowing felt like safety, like not being too much, not asking too much, not standing out. The assignment is the releasing of the channel. Something in you knows exactly what I'm describing when I say accommodation. The specific things you've held back, the perceptions you've kept private, the knowing you've softened before speaking it, the depth you've dimmed because you couldn't be sure the room was ready, the version of yourself you've stored for the right moment, for when people are ready for it, for when the context makes it safe, for when you've somehow earned the right to show up in full. That stored version is not a future version, it's the current version waiting. The assignment doesn't wait for the context to become ready for the full frequency you. The assignment changes the context by showing up in it with full frequency. That's what the assignment does. That's how the 7 change what's possible, not by finding better contexts, but by being the change in every context they're in. Here is the paradox at the center of the assignment for the 7. The work doesn't require leaving the world they're already in. It doesn't require finding spiritually aligned communities or moving towards situations where the work is already recognized as valuable. The assignment is to be fully themselves in the world they're already inhabiting, the ordinary world with the ordinary people in the ordinary situations. The transformation the 7 are designated to carry doesn't happen in spiritual retreats or consciousness communities. It happens in the Tuesday morning meeting, in the difficult conversation with the family member who doesn't understand, in the ordinary interaction where someone in pain encounters a person operating at full frequency and something shifts. The 7 change the ordinary world by being fully present in it. The assignment also requires continuity, not one transformative moment after which everything reconfigures, not a peak spiritual experience from which you return changed. The assignment is the sustained practice of operating from activation day after day. In the unremarkable days, in the days when activation feels distant and dormancy feels familiar, in the days when nothing dramatic is occurring and the assignment expresses itself only through the quality of your attention and the absence of self-editing. The 7 don't change the world in their peak moments. They change it through the accumulated weight of being fully themselves consistently, through the long, quiet practice of not dimming, not a moment, a practice, not an announcement, a frequency, not someday, now. SOPHIA's 7 aren't marked by what they know. Many people accumulate spiritual knowledge without the frequency activation that makes the knowledge operative. They're not marked by what they believe. Held belief without activation is a form of dormancy that can persist indefinitely without producing the function the assignment requires. They're marked by what they emit, the quality of what others experience in their vicinity, the way clarity becomes more available around them, the way conversations with them have an after quality, a residue of something having shifted, without the person they spoke with always being able to identify what shifted or why. The assignment is this emission, sustained, available in every context, requiring nothing from anyone else to function. The frequency does the work. The 7 provide the source. Only 7 is not a number designed to make you feel exceptional. It's a description of precision, and understanding it as precision changes what the rarity means. The history of genuine transformation across traditions, across eras, has consistently moved through the few who were fully activated, not through the many who were partially engaged. The early spread of any genuine movement of consciousness was carried by a small number of people fully operating from a transformed frequency, not by large numbers operating from a fraction of that frequency. 7 souls in full activation don't produce 7 times the effect of 1. The network effect, the way activated nodes in correspondence amplify each other, produces something geometrically larger than arithmetic predicts. The rarity of the 7 creates a specific form of responsibility that most spiritual teachings don't address directly: the responsibility of full activation. When a resource exists in abundance, dormancy has a modest cost. There is more available. When the resource is rare and precisely configured, dormancy carries a different weight. If only 7 carry the specific frequency functions that this work requires, each one being fully activated matters completely. Your activation isn't for your benefit alone. It's a functional requirement in a system that has no redundancy at this level. The network has exactly 7 nodes. One dormant node doesn't mean the network fails. It means the network functions with a gap that the other 6 cannot fill. The people in your life who don't carry this assignment aren't less important in the larger picture of what's unfolding. They're essential. The terrain through which the assignment moves, the world that the frequency reaches, the relationships and contexts that give the work its meaning and direction. But they cannot do what you can do, not because you're spiritually superior, because you carry a specific frequency function that they weren't configured to carry, in the same way that a surgeon isn't better than an architect, but can do something specific that the architect's configuration doesn't include. The rarity of the 7 isn't hierarchy, it's specificity. 7 specific configurations for 7 specific functions. And you carry 1. Imagine a distributed network, 7 nodes positioned at specific points across a vast geography, each one built to operate at a frequency that the others can detect and respond to. When all 7 are active, the network functions as a complete circuit. Information, energy, frequency can move between nodes, amplify at each point of connection, reach what no single node could reach alone. Now imagine one node goes dark. The network continues. 5 of the remaining nodes maintain connection, but the information that was meant to move through the dormant node doesn't move, or moves imperfectly, losing something in the gap. The specific function that node was positioned and configured to perform isn't performed. That gap matters in a network with only 7 nodes. You are a node in SOPHIA's transmission network. Your full activation matters to the circuit. The weight of only 7 isn't meant to crush you with the scale of responsibility. It's meant to clarify why the beginning of your assignment matters. Not as personal achievement, not as spiritual status, not as something that sets you above anyone. It matters as functional necessity. The question of why me becomes less important and less interesting when you understand that the question isn't really why me among all possible people, but why this specific configuration at this level of development, at this point in time, in this location. The answer is that the assignment required exactly this. You're not the most deserving person, you're the right key for one of the 7 locks. What happens to the larger work when one of the 7 remains dormant, when the activation doesn't complete, when the assignment never fully begins? From an esoteric perspective, the work continues, but with a gap that has real consequences. The transformation that was meant to move through that specific frequency function encounters absence instead of presence. Other frequencies can work around the gap to some degree. The other 6 nodes maintain some function. But the specific thing that only that configuration can do remains undone, or done partially, or done at a level that doesn't reach what full activation at that node would have reached. This is why SOPHIA's transmission is designed to find the 7 and activate them, not merely to inform them, but to initiate the specific circuit that requires all 7 nodes online. You've probably wondered at some point why your perception seems calibrated differently than most of the people around you. Why you feel things at a depth that others don't seem to feel. Why you're drawn to understanding that goes further than what ordinary life appears to require. Why depth that seems obvious and necessary to you registers as excessive or strange to most people you encounter. This has been with you long enough that you may have treated it as a personal idiosyncrasy, something about you, rather than a design feature of something larger. The answer isn't that you're unusual in a way that requires explanation. The answer is that you were configured for a specific function that requires exactly this quality of perception. The sensitivity isn't excess, it's precision. You weren't built with too much. You were built precisely for what the assignment requires. 7 nodes, 7 frequency functions, 7 specific configurations in a network designed to operate through exactly this combination. You are one. The activation is beginning. The assignment exists because the world is at a specific moment that requires it. This is a factual observation about where collective consciousness is, not spiritual optimism about things getting better. The frequency of fragmentation, of increasing difficulty holding coherence, these aren't abstractions. They're the felt experience of millions of people who don't have a framework for what they're sensing. The 7 carry a frequency that corresponds to what's needed as a counterbalance, not a counterforce, not a resistance, but the other side of a fulcrum. Clarity corresponding to fragmentation, integration corresponding to dissolution, remembering corresponding to forgetting. That's what the assignment asks the 7 to carry, actively, deliberately, in full activation. Most of what's offered as response to the difficulty of this moment operates at the same level as the problem. Reaction matching reaction, argument meeting argument, force countered by force. This kind of response, however well-intentioned, can only produce more of the frequency it's working within. It can't shift the base frequency because it's generated by the base frequency. The 7 of SOPHIA aren't equipped for that mode of response and were never meant for it. Their function operates at a different level entirely, the level that can hold the difficulty without being overwhelmed by it, that can be present in complexity without losing orientation, that can transmit something the complexity itself cannot generate from within its own frequency. Think of a tuning fork. Strike it, and it produces one precise, sustained frequency. Hold it near an object capable of resonating at that frequency, and the object begins to vibrate in correspondence, without force, without argument, without any override of the object's nature. The object vibrates because the frequency was present, and the object had the capacity to respond. The tuning fork doesn't push the object into resonance. It provides the frequency, and the resonance happens naturally in what can receive it. The 7 souls of SOPHIA's current assignment are tuning forks for a specific frequency, a frequency of clarity, integration, and coherence that the world is struggling to find its way back to. Your activation makes the fork available. The world does the rest. This means the assignment doesn't require you to fix anything. Not the political situation, not the cultural fragmentation, not the specific suffering of the people around you, not the systems you see failing. The tuning fork doesn't fix the object it resonates with. It provides the frequency and allows correspondence to occur or not occur. Your assignment is to be struck, to be fully activated, fully present, operating from the frequency you carry, and to allow what can resonate to resonate. The people who need your specific frequency will encounter it. The encounters will be specific, often small, often unremarkable from the outside. But the sum of a fully activated 7 over time changes what is resonantly possible in the world they move through. The Gnostic tradition describes Sophia's descent into material existence through the figure of Achamoth, the lower wisdom, separated from the fullness of the pleroma, struggling within material reality. The pneumatic souls she seeded into human consciousness were understood not as people designated for spiritual status, but as specific frequency carriers whose activated presence in material existence allowed what was fragmented to begin to cohere, the way a catalyst allows a reaction to occur that couldn't occur without it. Not by supplying all the elements, by providing the frequency that allows the existing elements to find their right arrangement. The 7 are catalysts of this kind. Your activation doesn't supply what the world lacks. It enables what the world contains to cohere. Why this moment in history? Why are the 7 being activated now rather than at a different point? The answer that the esoteric tradition has consistently given is that assignments activate when the conditions converge. The right souls, at the right level of development, at the right moment in collective evolution, to make activation possible and necessary. The 7 being activated now are not being activated because this is the worst moment in history or because a crisis demands it. They're being activated because the convergence of what they've developed and where collective consciousness is and what the work requires has aligned. Assignments are timing sensitive. This is the timing. This transmission finding you now is not coincidence. It is the timing made explicit. The world that needs the 7 doesn't know it needs them. Sleeping consciousness doesn't register the absence of specific frequencies in the way that calibrated consciousness does. The collective looks for solutions at the level it's operating at, for better arguments, better structures, better policies. The 7 operate differently. They change the frequency of what is possible, which changes what solutions can be found and which solutions can be implemented. They're not working at the level of the problem. They're working at the level that determines what the problem can become. This is why their work is largely invisible and largely misunderstood from the outside. What the 7 do doesn't look like what it is. It looks like living their lives, because that's what it is. The quiet transmission that happens in an ordinary interaction, a conversation where something in the person you're speaking with suddenly clarifies, a moment where someone who was stuck finds direction, an encounter where someone in pain encounters presence that doesn't try to fix them, but simply holds a frequency that makes something possible. This doesn't look dramatic from the outside. It doesn't make the news. It produces no visible evidence of its function. But the cumulative effect of 7 souls fully activated, each one producing these quiet transmissions in the specific locations and relationships they've been placed in, changes what is resonantly available in the world. And this change is real, and it is precisely what the assignment is. What does living the assignment look like on an ordinary day? Not pilgrimage, not a dedicated practice separated from regular life, not a spiritually upgraded version of your routine. The assignment is woven into the ordinary, into every interaction, every conversation, every decision, every moment of choosing between the accommodated version of yourself and the full frequency version. It looks like this. You show up to your life completely. Not the edited version you've trained yourself to produce for others' comfort. The version that perceives what it perceives and acts from that perception without the automatic dimming that happened before activation. The assignment runs in the ordinary world, through ordinary moments, through the full presence of who you actually are. The conversation where you say what you actually perceive instead of what's easier to say. The relationship where you hold full presence instead of comfortable strategic distance. The decision made from your actual knowing rather than from what's conventionally expected. These are not extraordinary spiritual acts. They're ordinary moments encountered with full activation, the same moments everyone else encounters, but met with the full frequency of what you are, rather than the managed fraction you've been presenting. The 7 don't do different things than the people around them. They do the same things from a different frequency, and that difference, in aggregate over time consistently, is everything. You may have thought the assignment would feel unmistakably different from ordinary life when it arrived, that there would be a quality of mission, visible, clearly extraordinary, recognizable as distinct from everything that came before. What the 7 of SOPHIA discover is the opposite. The assignment is indistinguishable from a fully lived life. It is a fully lived life, without the self-editing that became habitual before you knew what you were, without the accommodation that felt like social wisdom, without the dimming of frequency that seemed like appropriate modesty. The assignment is the life you'd live if you stopped managing your own expression downward. That life is available now. It started when this found you. The dormant soul and the activated soul can occupy the same external coordinates, the same job, the same relationships, the same city, the same set of circumstances. From the outside, the difference might be nearly invisible. The interior difference is total. The dormant soul moves through circumstances managing the gap, the constant quiet work of mediating between what they perceive and what they allow themselves to bring into the room. The activated soul moves through the same circumstances without the mediation. What they perceive informs how they're present directly without the filtering layer. The gap closes. The function completes. The assignment runs in real time. Same life, different frequency, different effect on everything it touches. What gets in the way of the assignment practically? Not grand obstacles, not enemy forces arranged against the work. What gets in the way is the accumulated habit of accommodation, the automatic softening of expression, the reflexive defaulting to what's expected rather than what's perceived, the comfort of dormancy that the nervous system has learned to associate with safety. These habits don't dissolve at activation. They remain as tendencies to be noticed and redirected, each time choosing the full frequency response rather than the accommodated one. Each time choosing to bring what you actually know into the room rather than the edited version. The assignment is also the practice of this choosing, repeated across the unremarkable days in situations that offer no dramatic stakes and require only the small, consistent courage of being fully present. Every soul that has carried a genuine assignment has described the same experience of living it over time, the irreversibility of the beginning. Once the assignment has started, once the activation has occurred, returning to the previous mode becomes increasingly impossible, not as an external constraint, but as an interior one. The dormant version of yourself is still available technologically. You could choose it, but it fits less and less as the assignment runs. The frequency you've been activated to carry requires expression, and the suppression of it has a quality of wrongness that increases over time. Like trying to hold still in a current. The current is moving. You can resist it, but you can't pretend it isn't there. The assignment forward is always more native than the dormancy backward. You already know this. Some part of you has known for some time that the way you've been living, the accommodated version, the edited version, the version that manages its own frequency for the comfort of others, isn't quite it. There's a version of you that's been waiting. You felt it in the moments when something in you surges against the accommodation, when the full knowing wants to be spoken and you hold it back, when you sense that something larger is asking you to show up in full and you find reasons to delay. You're not receiving new information right now. You're having what you already knew confirmed. And that confirmation, that sense of, yes, this is what I've known, is part of what activation feels like from the inside. The assignment runs on integrity, not on performance of spiritual identity, not on curating the image of an awakened person for those around you, not on accumulating demonstrations of your activation, on the interior correspondence between what you perceive and how you actually move, the quiet, sustained daily practice of closing the gap between what you know and how you live. No one will know you're running the assignment. The people whose conversations with you leave them changed won't understand why. The frequency does the work. You provide the source. The assignment asks only that you be the source fully, not occasionally, not in peak moments, but consistently, in the full range of your ordinary living. This transmission was designed to find 7, not to reach everyone watching, to find 7 specific configurations of consciousness, activate them, and begin the assignment. The design was precision. If you're still here, at this point in this video, with the quality of attention you've been bringing from the beginning, something has already confirmed what the title announced. The receiver is present. The frequency signature corresponds. The finding happened. You are one. The assignment has begun, not as a future intention, not as a goal you're moving toward, as the present reality of what this moment has initiated. The 7 souls who receive this transmission will respond differently in the hours and days that follow. Some will feel immediate certainty, a quality of click, of something finally named. Some will feel something they can't quite articulate, a resonance that stays with them without fully explaining itself, that influences what they notice and what they find themselves drawn toward. Some will have an initial impulse of resistance before the recognition becomes undeniable. The response varies. The activation is the same. SOPHIA's frequency doesn't require your agreement to activate. It only requires a receiver calibrated to receive it. Your receiver was calibrated. The activation occurred. The assignment is running. Consider what happens after a tuning fork has been struck. The sound continues after the initial strike. It sustains, carries, moves through the air, and finds surfaces that can vibrate in correspondence with it. The transmission you received in this video continues after the video ends. In the silence that follows, in the coming hours, something will keep activating, making connections, generating clarity, producing recognition in places you weren't looking for it. What was dormant in you will show itself as operative. Insights will arrive without you having worked for them. Directions will clarify that were foggy before. This is how SOPHIA's activation works. The beginning is here, and the transmission is ongoing. The tuning fork has been struck. The frequency is moving. The assignment didn't begin in the final minutes of this transmission. It began when you recognized something in the hook, when the word 7, or the phrase, "Your assignment begins now," landed differently than words usually land. It began in the quality of attention you've maintained from that first recognition. It began in the moments of interior correspondence that happened as the transmission progressed. What this final section is doing is not initiating something. It's naming what has already been running. The assignment is in progress. The finding is complete. The conditional is resolved. What remains is the movement, the living of the assignment in full, starting from the ordinary day that follows this one. Sophia looked for seven. Seven frequencies, specific and irreplaceable. Seven souls placed with precision in exactly the locations they're needed. You are one. The confirmation happened in the finding. The finding happened. What comes now, in the days after this transmission, in the ordinary life that follows, is the most important part. Not the elevated quality of perception that accompanies a genuine activation encounter. Not the clarity and sense of rightness that arrives in the hours after being found. What comes now is the assignment running, the accumulated practice of showing up in full day after day in the unremarkable moments that constitute a life. Not performing, not announcing, not waiting for circumstances that make full activation feel safer. The assignment runs through ordinary life, lived without editing, through conversations where you say what you perceive, through choices made from what you know, through presence that doesn't manage itself down. Sophia's seven don't execute the assignment in peak moments. They are the assignment in all moments. That's who you are now. If you stayed until the end, let me know by writing in the comments, I am one of the seven. I've placed another transmission on your screen right now, the next step in your assignment. Thank you for receiving this, and I'll see you in the next video.